Hassan Reddick officially requested a trade from the Jets on Monday, and the Jets decided to go ahead and respond. That was GM Joe Douglas, who said the following, quote, "We have informed Hassan that we will not trade him. He is expected to be here with his teammates and that he will continue to be fined per the CBA if he does not report. Since the trade discussions back in March, we've been clear, direct, and consistent with our position. Our focus will remain on the guys we have here as we prepare for the regular season." This doesn't appear like it's going to go anywhere anytime soon.
Have we ever heard anything like this happen? Where you had an immediate trade take place and then he wants to be traded again in football?
I mean, I can't quite recall something like this. I mean, I guess my first thought goes back to Antonio Brown going to the Raiders, which, you know, there's a number of things that happened that offseason. There was the cryo chamber foot thing. There was this whole helmet issue and all of that. Right. And he got traded, I think, before he even really did he even play a season for them?
No.
No. I think he got traded from Pittsburgh to the Raiders. And he got traded to, was it New England after that?
Yes.
Or released and then signed by New England. So, I mean, it was the most bizarre offseason that year. This is – what's not bizarre about this is it made complete sense. You know, Hassan Reddick, who is – a pass rush that's showcased the ability to get that bag based on how he's played the last 3 years. And the Jets had a need after they let, I believe it was Huff, go over to the Eagles. And so that kind of swap made sense. The fact that they, for some reason, didn't foresee this being an issue. I don't know if they didn't talk to his agent, if they didn't talk to Hassan Reddick. It sounds like Hassan Reddick, at least from the words and reports we're seeing from the Jets, are saying that he told them he'd play under this contract when they initially made the trade. But I always say, like, well, that's not the person you're negotiating the contract with. It's oftentimes the agent. And unless you've gotten confirmation from the agent that's going to be the case, like, I would never buy into what a player's going to say because, you know, players tend to get emotional about this stuff, as they should. It's their livelihood. They put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. So whatever was said initially upon the trade, the Jets should have known better, that they weren't just going to bring him in and have him play a year and then revisit the contract conversation, especially considering what he's done, because that's most likely why the Eagles traded him in the first place.
Exactly.
Like here's the twofold issue. It's either the Jets and Joe Douglas in particular were inept and they didn't know what they were trading for, meaning not just the player but the situation as well, all right, which is bad, or it's the other end of it. They did know and they couldn't get it done, which is equally as bad. Like, however way you want to slice this, however the Jets want to try to portray this, this is a bad look for the New York Jets to have an offseason like this. And by the way, they're coming out saying, well, we don't want to set the precedent. He hasn't played a snap for us yet. Okay, but other teams were able to take care of business this offseason, like the Eagles, for example, and they don't have any issues. There's no drama like that. Like the Eagles right now, zero drama whatsoever. And then that's where, like, I look at this trade and I just go, Howie Roseman once again looks like one of the best executives in the NFL for how he does business, and then subsequently how other teams look in comparison to how they do business, and then what happens other places.
The fact that they haven't gotten it done yet is one thing. The other aspect of it is that why would Joe Douglas make himself sound like a D-bag in the media like that? Like, we're going to just fine him. Like, he's supposed to be here. Like, well, he's not here. He's not there. And he clearly, it's 100% he ended up gets traded because he wanted to redo his deal. And Philly didn't want to redo the deal. That's clearly what it is. Like, that's clearly what it is. Otherwise, why do you let Hassan Reddick go? He was one of your best players. He was one of your most productive players. And it was being discussed. It was being discussed during the season, I believe, in terms of him getting an extension or something taking place. There were conversations that actually made it to the public consumption at some point with this player. I just don't understand, if you're Joe Douglas, why would you take the hard line approach? Well, we're going to fine him. Like, it just comes across as, I don't know, man. Like, you traded for this guy because you know he feels a need for your team. If you know he feels a need for your team, then it doesn't even sound like they're negotiating it. You need to negotiate and figure out what you want to do, or just grant him the wish that he wants. Why are you trying to hold him hostage? You don't want to pay him, but you don't want to see him go nowhere else. Like, come on, man. He's on. You say he's on the last year of his contract? You're on the last year of your contract. You're not going to renegotiate his contract. You're going to focus in on the players that are here and keep finding him. So why not just let him get a trade? Why not let him seek a trade? Like, that's silly.
So Connor Hughes of SNY had a tweet that he sent out yesterday detailing just sort of the interaction between the Jets and Hassan Reddick. And we talked about this when he did a video, like I think a couple of weeks ago at camp, at Jets camp there, about the situation. But the part that I found funny was where he writes, "The Jets will not cater to a player who has never played a down for them before."
So let him go.
Okay, well, what happened with Aaron Rodgers then?
Go.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, here's the part. And we talked about this.
Jonas, Knox.
We talked about this.
Good pool.
If they fail this year, everybody's gone. Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, Aaron Rodgers. And so the idea that, well, we don't want to set a precedent to other players that Brady pointed out. Well, dude, you should get as many good players as you can in the building. And if that means breaking what you normally would do in order to get it done this year, just to keep your job, that should be the priority. Like, worry about that stuff down the road. He's a great player. If this is what it's going to take, you having to give him a contract before he shows up and it goes against what you do, what does it matter if you're making a deep playoff run and everybody gets an opportunity to come back next year? It just feels like their priorities about the standard and what we normally do here are offline with the fact that, well, you're not going to be doing anything there if you guys don't win because everybody's gone after this year. It just feels like a mess.
The only thing we don't know is if, Woody Johnson, their owner, is handcuffing Joe Douglas and saying, I don't want you to spend more cash or more money. Like, I don't want you to cripple, this organization in the future because of the decisions you're making right now to survive. And you oftentimes see that. You'll see front offices that trade away a bunch of picks or feel desperate. They make picks they don't feel good about, or bring in players and spend a lot of money one offseason to try to build up the roster and then find themselves in cap hell, come a year or two down the road. And so oftentimes, owners will have the foresight to kind of put a kibosh on that, or at least say there's limits to it. So we don't necessarily know what they're saying behind closed doors. I would just say, like, every situation with an athlete is unique. However they got to the team, whether they're drafted, whether they're traded for, whether they're signed as a free agent, their situation, what they've accomplished, what they've done is unique. This is when they talk about not wanting to set a precedent as far as having a guy be signed to an extension who hasn't played a snap for them. Okay, he hasn't played a snap for you, but he's played a lot of snaps in the NFL, and he's proven himself in the NFL. And the truth is, you wouldn't have traded for him if that wasn't the case. So you could say that, but this is like a separate situation as compared to DJ Reed or some of the other players who are on the roster who won a new deal. It's different. And by the way, that's not saying that those guys shouldn't get paid too. I'm just saying you already spent capital in draft or in trading for him. Like, you already made this decision. Like, you made this bet. Now you got to lay in it. And I know they talked about guaranteeing his contract for this year. I think which is roughly a little more north of $14 million, something like that. But that's grossly underpaying him for what a top edge rusher gets paid. And that's literally what he's done the past few years, is put himself in that conversation. He's a double-digit sack guy the last 3 years.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense.
I agree. Grant him the right to get a trade, man. Like, just grant him the right to get a trade. Do exactly what the 49ers have done. Let him see if he can get a trade. And then the market is going to speak. If he can't get a trade, then it's like, look, we let you go out and seek a trade. But we're not redoing your contract right now. So come in and play or don't come in and play. We let you seek a trade. Now, you want to come play or not? Which is strange because are you saying you only want Hassan Reddick for 1 year? Like you can say, well, he hasn't played for us. Like, you're saying you're okay with having Hassan Reddick for 1 year because now you've damaged the relationship beyond repair. So why even draw a hard line that way? Why not endear yourself to the player? He is a productive player. This isn't, like you said, this isn't like a normal situation. You're getting an elite pass rusher. That's what he brings to the table. And he's shown it because his track record has proven it. I just don't understand why they would take such a hard line stance on not paying the man. It doesn't. And if you're not going to pay him, then at least handle the scenario much differently than what you're doing.
Yeah. Like why?
I mean, it just doesn't sound like it's being handled correctly.